We pretty much know both of you in different capacities. So just an introduction from each of you, who you are and why you're running. So we'll start with the incumbent.
Well, my name is Pedro J. Garcia. I'm the Miami-Dade County Property Appraiser. The reason I'm running, I'm an state certified general real estate appraisal. I've been an appraisal for the past 37 years. I've been the property appraiser in Miami-Dade County for the past 3.5 years. And I'm a realtor for the past 40 years, so I spent most of my life in real estate. And that was the reason I make the decision. I spent 10 years as a magistrate in the Value Adjustment Board. I was sitting down with property owners to see the problems that the county has establishing values. And due to I spent all those years doing appraisals, I was very familiar with the values.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carlos Lopez Quintera. As many of you know, I've served in the Florida House for the last 8 years. The last 2 as Majority Leader and Chairman of the delegation. I have focused on property tax, property form issues in my time in the legislature. And I can get into more detail in the Q&A if you'd like. This last year, when I dealt with the issue of the garages next to the stadium, it brought the office of the property appraiser into focus more for me, an office that I've always thought was very important. And I started to do a lot of homework, a lot of research. People brought me some information, and I just was not happy with what I was finding. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Mr. Garcia. I think he's a fine gentleman, and I don't want anything that I say here today to reflect upon him personally, because I think he's a nice person. But the job that the property appraiser's office does in Miami-Dade County is very important. It is oftentimes overlooked, and there's a lot of problems with values, with appeals, customer service, homestead fraud, technology, transparency of information with the public. And again, I have a lot of data, and it would take a lot of time to explain it, so I'll wait to the Q&A.
We'll get into some of that, and then we'll of course have.
Let's start off. You mentioned the stadium. Let's start off with the stadium. Can you tell us, Mr. Garcia, how did it get to the point where the city ended up owing for the stadium?
Okay, I was requesting the contract for the parking facility for the Marlins for quite a while. Finally, in October, they gave it to me. When I read it, I see that everything on when we're talking about the clauses on the contract, everything was in favor of the Marlins, including that the city of Miami has to pay taxes on the property. When I study and I request the constitutional law regarding how we can give them exemptions on that particular parking garage, I found out that the Constitution only required that it's got to be an exclusive use for public or for the municipality. So when I made contact with some of the attorneys, we discussed it with that, and we agreed that the property was taxable because the Marlins were making money on top of the rent that they were doing. The reason they were making money is they have 81 days on the parking facilities that they have games that they will charge. It's about $5 above what they're paying. And also, all the other time that they're going to use the facilities, and they have the entire stadium to do whatever they want to any kind of event, all the rent will be also for the Marlins. So definitely there was a big business for the Marlins, and it was not the exclusive use for that city or for that municipality. And that's the reason we established that they have to pay taxes.
But municipalities normally don't pay taxes on public buildings, right? It was sort of this loophole because of the lease.
It's a business involved, and they were leasing that particular area
right.
to the Marlins, and the Marlins were making profit on top of that.
Right.
And that's the
So
reason.
whatever the lease payment was, it was still shorter than what the taxes that were owed? Was that part of the
No,
problem
we
too?
we discussed with the president of the Marlin to see if there was any opportunity. I even present to them that they pay $2.75 extra on the $10.03, so that's the lease agreement with the city of Miami, to try to cover for about $1 million, $1.1 million, something like that on taxes. And the answer from him was, I'm not interested.
Because the contract, he felt,
The contract in there says that the city of Miami pay taxes.
okay. So
On the same
what is
issue.
your, well, yeah, because you mentioned it, how did you perceive the problem there? And was it just more a problem of the contract where the, Pedro's hands were kind of tied legally, or how would you approach it? How could it be approached differently?
Well, clearly, the deal with the team was not a good one, and I think everybody can agree on that. But the city, I did my homework on it before I took on this issue. The city made a very valid argument, which was they broke down the number of hours in the entire year that the team would have a specific right to use of the stadium garages, and the rest of the time would be exclusive city use. It broke down to about less than 5% of the number of hours in the year would go to the city. I thought it was a reasonable argument that they said we have control 95% of the time. The Constitution is not explicit in this specific situation. The Constitution says municipal uses, exclusive municipal uses shall be exempt from taxation. It is silent as to anything else, so there is an ambiguity
About the lease agreement?
about everything. I mean,
Anything
there's
other
only
than-
two cases that have been decided, and none of them are even come close to this specific situation. So I believe that the city made a valid enough argument that they should be exempted. Now, I also consulted with constitutional attorneys. I consulted with other elected property appraisers, and became very clear that the property appraiser could, because since he is the titular, not the titular, but the constitutional officer charged with making these decisions, the decision falls on his shoulders. And he chose to tax it. I didn't agree with it, so I pursued the legislation to exempt them. At the very least, what he could have done was said, well, the city has rights to 95%, and the team has rights to 5%, so we shall only tax it at a 95% rate. That was something that also could have been done. Because of his power as the property appraiser, I mean, it does fall, at the end of the day, to his decision. That's just the way it is, especially when there is an ambiguity, as there was in this specific situation.
Can I
Go ahead.
Move
on to the next
I
question.
have no way to make any decision in favor or against. Even when he present the new law, I stay quiet because, in my personal opinion, I don't want the people from the city of Miami to pay these taxes. What we were looking, Mr. Tomas Regalado, the mayor, and myself, was to try to move the Marlins to make some move so we can get some money from them. Because what happened with this law, we heard the school board, the children's trust, the Miami-Dade County, okay, we save X amount of money on maybe $10 to $11 per citizen in the city of Miami. There was no way I can make a decision one way or the other one. I have to go straight by the law, because the law says I have to collect that taxes. And that's strictly, and you remember, Mr. Quintero, that in Tallahassee, the recommendations that you have received from your own aides, that was complete and was not constitutional law.
But it passed, right?
It passed, the recommendation, it was not recommendations. The staff of the various committees do analyses of every piece of legislation, and if there could be any type of constitutional issue, they note it. It's boilerplate, as you call CYA language, that goes into these bills. I did my homework on this, and I was confident that what we were doing would pass muster and would be held constitutional if it were to be challenged. I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to a judge to decide, but when legislating, you need to do what you think is right, and that's why I pursued it.
But if that law is challenged, there's going to be an additional expenses more for the city of Miami. And you know that they're going to lose, because it happened in
The city of
in
Miami
Sebring and happened in different areas. With any time a company is making profit, the taxes have to be paid.
The city of
Because I
Miami doesn't.
review that with all the attorneys, and believe me, before I make my decision, I did it with the knowledge that was going on.
All right, well, let's move on to another topic.
Please.
Well, you have differences in your questionnaires on the issue of management of the office, that it's customer-friendly or it's not customer-friendly. So we'll start with you, Collins. You disagree that you don't think it is customer-friendly, or that there are improvements that could be made?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, it starts with just what you see when you walk in. When you walk in, there is just a counter and then walls with locked doors, cameras, looking at, what's going on. And it's not a friendly environment for people who go to get service from this office. At the end of the day, the charge of this office is to render the values for all the properties, but it's also to render a public service. I mean, it is an elected public office. And I think that it should be a more open environment. I think that there should be more transparency with the information. I think there should be more sharing of information. For instance, we are at July 27th, and you still are not able to get your proposed taxable value for 2012. Whereas other counties, and I'll use Broward as an example a lot because Broward is recognized as a very good property appraiser's office. They start sharing information in May and June with the public.
When do the CRIM notices go out?
Trip notices go out approximately August 24th, and that's historically when the information is made public, when it is statutorily required. But it's actually,
But if you want to know even earlier, is what
you're not able to. And actually, if you start to share information, one, it's better relationship with the public. But two, I think it would go a long ways in dealing with the problem with the astronomical number of appeals that are filed every year in Dade County. Because if people have their information sooner, they can come in with plenty of time, not just the 25 days that they have now under the current system, and have the time to make their argument. And if they make a valid argument, there's 897,000 properties. It's not going to be perfect every time, but if you give them time to come in, make their argument, and say, this is why I believe that you were wrong. If I'm elected and we're wrong, we'll adjust it. But it's just the culture, the overall culture of, and this is not, I don't think this all falls on the shoulders of Mr. Garcia, because this existed before he was elected. It's just, when he got elected, it just remained the status quo.
Mr. Quintero, you're wrong on that. We make our office very friendly. Everybody that walk in that front desk is all trained, including the 311 that we have, the people receiving phone. Everybody that wants to know the value of the property, they can contact us. And by the way, I received yesterday an email that the DOR final approved the final certification. This is my 4th year, and we never have a problem with DOR when we certify the values. We don't want to give the values of those properties until we get that kind of certification, because then we know that all the numbers that we have are correct. We don't want to give you a number today and a different number tomorrow, and that's not me, my way of doing things. I'm a professional. I've always been a professional, and I want everything to be as good as possible. Yes.
Okay, he raised the issue which is going to be my next question,
Yes.
of the high number of cases that go before the VAB, and I'll let you answer that, and then
Sure.
he can reply to that.
In 2009, I was elected, and that was my first year. We have 136,236 appeals. 2010, 101,241 appeals. 2011, 89,621 appeals. As you see, because we are working on the fair value of the property, let me tell you, I reduced $66 billion in 3 years in taxable value in Miami-Dade County. This is the first time in the history of Miami that any property is being reduced that big, or any kind of reduction whatsoever. So I did that reduction, and little by little we've seen that the appeals is being reduced, because the people are seeing that the values that we establish are the fair values on those properties. And that's what we are working on. And when you compare that to Mr. Quintero use Broward once in a while, or maybe all the time, I got the information from Broward yesterday. They have the same percentage of reduction that we have.
It's more a reflection of the market, I'm sure. I mean, you had to
And
deal
not
with
only that,
the
we're
downturn in the
complaining
market.
about Miami, and I received this information from Broward yesterday, okay? We just had our last hearing on July 24. We finished all the hearings in 2010 in May, okay? And I'm anticipated a few that need to go back to magistrate for a hearing. For this reason, I don't feel that we certified the 2010 tax roll until October. That's Broward County, and that's a sale from Broward County, and I got it yesterday.
I got several things to say. First, on sharing the information waiting for DOR certification, I did my homework. And as far back as 1997, the Department of Revenue has not certified any county in the entire state's tax roll. All 67 counties, since 1997, they have not once not certified a county's tax roll that was sent to them. So I don't think that's a big issue. The issue of the reductions, if you look just at 2009, which is the last full year of information that is available. If you look at the total number of value reduced in the entire state of Florida, it was $10,685,163,000 in taxable value reduction. Of that, 80% of it was attributed to the reductions in Miami-Dade County, which was about, it was $7,927 million, $8 billion. And if you look at the percentage of appeals that are reduced in Dade County, and this goes back all the way to 2006, 54% of the appeals were given a reduction. 2007, 47% of them were given a reduction. 2008, 54% of them were given a reduction. 2009, 54% of them were given a reduction. Every year to the tune of billions of dollars. This shows that there is a problem with the numbers that are coming out of the office and going to the Value Adjustment Board. I mean, the same year in 2009 in Broward and Hillsborough, Broward was granted 8% of their values or appeals were granted a reduction. In Hillsborough, 4% of their appeals were granted a reduction in 2009. And this information, I got it from the Department of Revenue, which is where the VABs, the Value Adjustment Board, sends their information.
Could I give this information regarding Broward?
Just a moment. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
let him finish.
So
you said 8%, this is in 2009?
Yes. And in
And it's
2000
Broward is 8%, 4% in Hillsborough, so what is it
it was
in
attached-
Miami-Dade?
All the information was attached to my questionnaire when I sent it in.
Okay, well, yeah, but,
And it all comes from the Department of Revenue. And the thing is this is a systemic problem here in Dade County. There's no reason that 80% of the reductions in values, and this is 80% in 2009. 2010, it was 75% of the total reductions so far in the entire state come from Dade County. I believe there is a problem with the integrity of the numbers that are coming out of the office and going to appeal. And this is just the ones that are appealed. This doesn't even take into consideration the ones that were not appealed. I mean, if it was a quality control office and this was a corporation, this would be extremely alarming. And this existed before, and nothing has changed. I mean, if I would have noticed this the first day, I would have said, what's wrong? Why are we getting so many of our values reduced? There has to be accountability in the values that are produced in the office, and nothing has happened to address that.
I want to prove to you this is a Broward. The real thing about Broward and the real thing between Miami and Broward. As you see, we got a 59, like he was talking about, 59.5 on 2009. This is the real reduction on Broward, not an 8%. 48.8%, almost very similar to us, and it's a smaller county.
44.8 versus
I'm sorry, I was looking for-
59.5.
And
Okay.
no, it's okay.
This is all the counties?
And 57.59 to
And this is from the Department of Revenue. This
42.20.
gives you everything. I mean, that's from the
Okay.
Department of Revenue.
All right.
And this is, I received it from Broward County. I mean, so he's mentioned something that is not true.
Can you leave that one so that we can compare it? We can copy it if you
Of
need.
course.
Thank you.
You mentioned something in your questionnaire.
Yes, sir.
But I wasn't sure you were in favor of it. The recapture rule, which is something that we hear about a lot, which means people's...
The lower the value,
market-
they don't have to get an increase in
The market
assessment.
value goes down, but somehow the assessed value goes up.
That's the way the law reads right now, and we hope that they come out with they stopping that situation in Tallahassee, because if the value of that property come down, it shouldn't get any higher in taxes because of that. So that's what we are mentioning that.
Well, you're familiar with Amendment 4 that'll be on the ballot in
Right.
November.
Right,
which-
the Save Our Homes Amendment, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it has three issues. It has the first-time home buyer, it has the recapture rule, and it has the cap for non-homestead property. So the recapture issue is dealt with in there. What it does is it just gives the legislature the authority by general law to address the issue, which I anticipate, if it passes in November, that it will be addressed in this upcoming legislative session.
Right. We mentioned that this morning in the Nunez recommendation.
Yeah.
Representative Nunez, yeah.
Right.
Can you assess how the office, both of you, assess how the office is handling going after homestead exemption fraud? Maybe we want to start with Mr. Garcia.
Start with me. Let me tell you, we are working very hard. Finally, we got a program that they've been worked for about 2 years regarding the homestead fraud. It was a situation that it's been there since I was elected. I found that situation. Excuse me a second, let me look for the numbers here. When I was elected in 2009, in 2008, they leaned about $3,580,000 in liens on homestead fraud. I got elected in 2009. We increased that to $5,544,000. 2010, we went down to $5,007,000. 2011, $7,956,000. And now in 2012, finally, about a month and a half ago, we have a new program they call GRM. And that program gave us all information about people that die in different areas and outside of
It's like a
the
computer
Florida.
program?
Right.
Okay.
They've been working in that for about the last 3 years. Some of the companies we interview, like 3 or 4 companies, most of them, they were offering us to collect 30% cost on everything that we collect, and I didn't agree on that because they was taking 30 cents a dollar from every dollar we collect from for the taxpayers. So finally, we got an agreement with the same company. They do camera for us, Manatron, and we come out with the agreement that they will charge 10% of the penalties and interest. We tried before to contact with the Florida Power and Light. We increase our personnel, but we getting all the information from people that they were divorced people fighting against each other, or neighbors disgusted for any reason, or some people that wants to present the cases. Now we have a different system. Now I can tell you that so far, today, we lien $28,963,000. So we're really going after. I increased the personnel. There was about 4 to 5 persons when I started. Now we have 16, including 6 agents from the police department that working full-time with us. We train them, and they go out now, and they do all the inspections, and they do all the paperwork to try to catch these people that are doing fraud.
When we were talking yesterday to Mayor Jimenez, who had come in, and we asked him about the issue of homestead exemption, because that's become an issue in that race as well, and he said he had spoken to your office and offered help, but that you had said you didn't need more police. So I wanted you to...
I'm sorry to tell you that Mr. Jimenez didn't tell the truth. Okay, and I can tell him.
No, well, he may not have
I heard on
had
the
it right.
radio yesterday, and I want to be on the radio to tell him about it. We have one meeting in all this time, on this year, and Mr. Jimenez was not even there. Okay? He's my friend because I know him since he was a kid. But it's a shame that he present that case that way, because we have 6 agents working with us, and there was a chief. When we have the first meeting, there was a chief of police there, and we agreed that we're going to use those 6 agents. Before, they were doing only investigation. Now we program them. They are doing everything, working with us 24 hours a day. So they are full-time.
When did they start working with you?
So at the beginning of this year. That's where we see the difference on the links coming into the office. And that's what we did. I have a meeting with one of his assistants. And they brought me one of the companies that want to charge 30%. And I did not buy it, because I'm a responsible guy. I always spend my own money, and I don't like to spend money from the taxpayers that we don't have.
But he specifically spoke about police assistance, so I
Yes.
guess that what
We
you're
have it.
saying, you
We
had
have
it already at
We
that
have
point, or you were planning to get it at that point?
No. When we have the first meeting with the chief of police, that was over a year ago. Maybe at the beginning they were doing only investigation.
I see.
In January, we trained them. We brought them to the office because we don't want them to treat these people like criminals.
Right.
Not everybody's a criminal. We're going to have to, some people are going to be in jail in the next maybe a couple of weeks. You will see it. But we trained them, and now they're working very, very good with us. Plus, the personnel, they increased. I moved some of the personnel they
So
have.
do you have an idea of how many people you've been able to, you talk about, we're going to see some people arrested. Have there been arrests coming out of these beyond the liens? Is there some kind of major scam going on?
It's people, they did some criminal things. For example, like they receive a check for the seniors that's supposed to be for that senior, and they change that check. So become a criminal situation.
Oh, okay.
And that's what we are discussing now with Catherine Fernandez Rondel, and that's what we're going to make the decision on that. I can leave you this.
Okay.
And this is exactly the numbers, and you can verify it.
May I? Thank you. I think the issue of homestead exemption fraud is just another example of how not a lot had changed in the office, not a lot of activity. Recently, there's been a flurry of activity. I think, campaign time, I think it's pretty transparent. Even the numbers that are given to you show that there wasn't a lot of activity, 5 million, 5 million, 7 million, and then all of a sudden $28 million. It shows that it was just recently started to be addressed. I believe there's a tremendous amount of homestead exemption fraud. If you just do simple math, 442,000 homesteads approximately in Dade County, 5% is a standard of what is expected of fraud. Unfortunately, Dade County, people here do fraud above and beyond what other parts do. But 5% is a conservative number. That's 22,000 parcels. And at a $9,000 average lien, which is a number that was produced by Mr. Garcia's office, that would come up with $198 million in liened in homestead fraud. I don't believe that, first of all, I don't believe that all the costless measures were addressed to identify homestead exemption fraud. For instance, there's no sharing of information with the multiple listing service of the realtors. The multiple listing service is very easy to identify homes that are for rent and cross-referencing it with homestead exemptions that are filed. It doesn't automatically prove fraud, but it is a way to identify it. Another idea that I had.
Is that done in other places?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I want to talk about the multiple listing later.
Secondly, FPL. More times than not, most of the time, the landlord does not pay the electric bill. The tenant pays the electric bill. I proposed to not ask FPL for their information, but I proposed to send the homestead rolls, which is a public record, to FPL, and asking them as good stewards, good public stewards, or good corporate stewards to cross-reference with their information and just let the office know which ones don't match. That's a very easy way to identify possible homestead exemption frauds. And again, it doesn't cost anything. And then the issue of the contract, if I was going to sign a contract, I would have gone to a public procurement process. There was no public procurement. There were no bids submitted. There was no transparency in that process. It was simply an amendment to an existing contract, which is a loophole in the county's procurement process that allows for going around procurement. If you amend a current contract, you don't have to go through a procurement. I believe that if you have to end up at a contract, it should be transparent, and there should be a public procurement process where all the companies publicly submit what their offer is to see, so everybody has an opportunity to see what the best deal is for the public. So I would have handled this issue a lot earlier, and I believe I would have handled it a lot better at a reduced cost.
Okay, when he's talking about the multiple listing service, I'm a realtor for 40 years. I'm a member of the Miami Board of Realtors. For the past 3.5 years, we've been negotiating with the multiple listing service to see if we can get this service. They don't want to give it to us. They believe we're going to use those information against them in some of the appeals, so they refuse to handle anything or give us anything or give us the opportunity to use them. That's one thing. On the agreement, Mr. Quintero, we, like I said before, we deal with different companies, and because I'm a personal people that save money, because I always done that, and you can see it in my information that I don't owe any money to anybody. We fight very hard to get a great deal. And we did it with the same company because they created a program that was working properly with us, and we can adjust it to that. We even discussed it with the commissioners before we make the decision, and we finally make that decision. And
Did you put anything out to bid?
No, we are allowed to do it. Because what we did, it was an extension of the contract with them, and we got the best deal because this doesn't cost a penny to the taxpayers because we collect all the taxes. The only thing that they're going to get is 10% of the penalty and interest. So all the taxes that the people owe will come down to Miami-Dade County. There will be no money from there they're going to be paying to them. We only give them a 10% penalties and interest.
If I may?
Yes.
But just really quickly, back to the realtors for a second. I spoke to the Board of Realtors about this issue in great depth, and they were concerned that their information, as far as square footages, would not match up with the property appraiser square footages, and that is a valid concern. But I said to them, if I was a property appraiser, I wouldn't ask for that. All I'm asking for is the address of the home that is listed for rent. That's all I would want. And they said, oh, that makes sense. Okay, that's common sense. And I'm proud to announce that the realtors have endorsed my candidacy for property appraiser. We both were interviewed by them, and they've chosen to endorse me.
Go ahead.
Well, go ahead if you
I
want.
wanted to ask about foreclosures because that was something that we're still facing and we faced deeply. Some stories a couple years ago when the foreclosure explosion really took off. Why doesn't Miami-Dade, or how does Miami-Dade weigh a foreclosure in neighborhoods or foreclosed homes in neighborhoods, and how does that function
I
in your
bring
office?
this to you. That's 3,200 and I believe 90 some foreclosures. We have to qualify those foreclosures. We don't use foreclosures because most of them are vandalized. And when you see those properties completely destroyed, you have no way to compare those properties to livable properties in the same neighborhood. But the Department of Revenue says that we can use foreclosures if we qualify those foreclosures. Here is all the foreclosures that we qualified since 2000.
What does that mean by quality? Yeah, that they haven't been vandalized, or?
There's been offer in the market by the banks or by the lenders. They put it on the market, and then they have different persons that will be trying to buy the property. We confirm with the attorneys, we confirm with the banks, we confirm with the buyers, with the sellers, if we have any sellers, and we qualify those property as a good sale. When we qualify those properties as a good sale, and that's the reason we have the certification from the Department of Revenue today, because we are following their instructions to the minimum that they require. And here, I'm going to leave it with you because this is a record, a public record. This is all the foreclosures that we use looking for the market in Miami-Dade County. And let me tell you, if you take a look of Homestead, you go to Florida City, you go to Opelika, you will see that the market value in Homestead, Florida City, Opelika is foreclosures. And that's where you see properties that we're selling for $400,000 that we have it assessed today for $60,000, $70,000, and $80,000. Why? Because we use the foreclosures, but we qualify the foreclosure. We don't use any kind of foreclosure because when everybody leaves those properties, the owners will demolish and vandalize a property, or if they leave it empty, somebody coming after that. I've been inspecting foreclosures personally, but you see that they taking the windows, the doors, the garage doors. I was standing in one of them one day, and there was the iron fence, and I told one of my deputies, look at that, they didn't touch the iron fence. A truck stopped about 10 minutes later, and the people start taking the gate. They say, is this your property? The people look at me, and they start running. I got so upset that I forgot to look at the tag of the truck, and they disappeared. But I'm sure that after we left, that gate was gone. And we have no way to.
So I guess the
to
complaint
use
is,
those properties.
Right.
I disagree with 90% of the court's rulings on foreclosures.
If they are vandalized, if the property is not in a livable way and it was not on the market, we will not qualify those foreclosures.
but other counties do, right? Is
No,
that-
I'm
no?
sorry.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
No, I'm sorry. They have to follow the instructions by the Department of Revenue. Department of Revenue says you can use foreclosures if you qualify them.
And
I
you
don't
have
believe
been
it.
qualifying them?
Yes. And I don't believe anybody will do anything opposed
Unless
to
they're
the
qualified.
Department of Revenue.
Okay.
I've made this an issue in the campaign. Mr. Garcia was on the record in your own article saying that he didn't include foreclosures. His website, until a month ago, said foreclosures are to be disregarded, period. I started to make it an issue in the campaign. He started to change his messaging, and he even went as far as to change his website from one day to the next. After we had a conversation, he handed me this same list of
I hope you keep it,
of
because
addresses.
that's from 2009, Mr. Cantara.
The same year that you were quoted as saying you don't include foreclosures. He handed me this same list. This really doesn't provide anything because there's nothing there except addresses and values. I've talked to magistrates. I've talked to real estate professionals. I've talked to attorneys that specialize in this. All of them agree that Miami-Dade County has not been using foreclosure. That's possibly one of the reasons for such the high number of value reductions over the last 3 years, because the magistrates were recognizing the foreclosures and the property appraiser's office was not. So this is a campaign time, and Mr. Garcia is running for re-election, and this is a very unpopular issue, and I wouldn't expect him not to try and change his tune, but the facts are the facts. And I mean, all you have to do is look at his website a month ago, and I have the proof. I have from one day to the next. I took a screenshot of both where it shows the change. It was the policy of the office not to use it. It's not a popular issue, and I understand that, but part of running for office is running on your record. So my philosophy on foreclosures is very simple. It's common sense. If foreclosures affect your market value, if a high number of foreclosures affects your market value, it should affect your taxable value as well. Period. It's not complicated.
Hey, you see this?
And wait, I'm sorry, I'm not.
I'm sorry.
And the issue of Mr. Garcia talking about going into homes, the property appraiser doesn't assess property the same way that private fee appraisers do. The license that Mr. Garcia has is not a license and not the same type of appraisal that property appraisers do. Property appraisers appraise from the outside only. Fee appraisers go in, they look at your crown molding, they look at your finishes, your granite tops, your toilets, the value of all that, and that is all put into the appraisal of the property, whereas the mass appraisal system is totally different. There's only one certification that the Department of Revenue recognizes for elected property appraisers. It's called a Certified Florida Florida Appraiser. It's 4 classes and a test. And if you go on several property appraisers' websites around the state, you'll see CFA next to their name, because that is the only certification that the Department of Revenue recognizes as it relates to appraisal, because it's the one certification that teaches you the difference between private fee appraisal and mass appraisal.
Now they're using the state certified general real estate appraisal also, colors. That's the law in the United States.
So did
And-
you change the website? What was the deal with
No,
that?
there was one area in there. At the beginning, I didn't use foreclosure. But as you see, we start qualifying those properties in January 1st, 2009. I got in my office in January 7th, 2009. At the
So-
beginning, I was talking about not to use foreclosure because I see the properties were vandalized. When we have together with the Department of Revenue, and it says you can use the foreclosure if they are qualified, we start using the foreclosure.
So what'd you have on the
believe-
website, that the other
There was-
information?
Not on the website. There was some information from the beginning in 2009. We're talking about 3 years ago. It's not in our website. There wasn't something in my information that maybe you find it under Pedro J. Garcia, but not on the website of Miami-Dade County. I'm sorry,
With
Mr.
all due
Cantera.
respect, I have screenshots going from June 18th, 2012 to June 21st that shows the change.
Well, maybe it was there. Who knows? I don't check my website inch by inch. You
But
were
as the
looking
leader of the office, that's
for
your
that.
responsibility to do so.
It's possible it was there.
Okay. Do you have any differences here on the Save Our Homes amendment? I gathered from your replies that you think it's a good thing, period.
And
you
this is
have
my
some questions about it.
You want to ask him or me?
No, you start.
Start with you.
In my opinion, Save Our Home was great, and it's still great because in the time of the boom, there was a lot of people that could have lost all their properties, but they couldn't afford to make payments on taxes because of the increasing values of those properties. So in that particular time, the Save Our Home was really good, and I believe it's to save a lot of people not to lose their properties, including myself.
So I think Save Our Homes helps a lot of people. What I recognize is that it was a citizen's petition in the 90s that was put into the Constitution. The Constitution is a living, breathing document. The legislature has, through the years, proposed amendments to the Constitution to deal with unintended consequences of Save Our Homes, such as recapture, which we talked about, and portability. So it has been changed, and there are unintended consequences that have occurred over the years by virtue of the boom and bust. Those are the only ways to see where the unintended consequences were. So I do believe Save Our Homes does a good thing and helps people, but I understand that because of the rigidity of the Constitution and the way it has to be changed, it has to be addressed via constitutional amendments that are usually proposed by the legislature. And there will be other inequities between now and the future that will come to light that nobody intended or predicted or could have predicted. One portability issue that's coming up now that I believe will have to be addressed in the upcoming legislative session is because of portability, there's people now that the real estate activity has started again, there's people who are now selling their homes. Their assessed value has been low, and their Save Our Homes benefit is not that much. They don't agree with their market value as assessed by the property appraiser office, and when they sell, they say, well, I'm selling for a higher, I don't agree with this, so I want to appeal my value to make it higher, because I want to be able to port more value. And there's a chicken and egg scenario, because if you sell in June and the appeals process is in August, September, you don't have the right to appeal the value, although it does affect you. So that's another unintended consequence that I predict will have to be addressed, because with the increase in activity in the market, this is actually something that is becoming more and more prevalent.
Right. Now, of course, the recapture really was intended for exactly the situation,
Right.
because, I mean, really, if you're giving people a break and other newcomers are moving into the neighborhood and they're paying astronomical amount versus the longtime resident, when those properties hit bottom because of something like a devastating that's happened here, then, this tries to level the playing field by having a minimum. I think it's less than 3% rise but people, it's hard for them to understand. I enjoyed these breaks for 10, 20 years, and now I'm going to get hit with a 3% rise.
Let me explain something to you. you, Mr. Cantera, is the people increase the value of the properties. We're going to use market to establish the value of those properties. I don't care if they come in with a $500,000 on a $300,000.
I wasn't being critical of you.
No, let me finish on that.
That closing happens in the middle of the year.
No,
You assess it the January 1st.
The problem is you've never done an appraisal in your life, so you have no idea what is an appraisal and how we establish the value. I'm sorry to tell you straight in your face, but it is true. You've never done an appraisal in your life. You have a license to sell and rent real estate, and buy sometimes too.
If I may I?
Actually, want to do a closing
I
because
just need to
we're,
address that really quickly.
Really
I'm
quickly,
sorry.
because
I'm
we're
sorry.
past.
Only because he
Go ahead.
came right at me.
Okay.
Of course.
I have a considerable amount of private experience in real estate. I have personally valued properties via the income approach, the cost approach, and the comparable approach in my day-to-day business dealings. I have a pretty well-rounded understanding of appraisal theory. I have a real estate license, have for 15 years. Plus, my record in the legislature and the policies that I have pushed throughout my career, not just in the last 2 years, the last 4, my entire career dealt with these specific issues, even laws that affect the way the property appraiser's office does its job. I wrote, and they are in law now. So my record speaks for itself. I know what I'm doing. The property, and I can just segue into the closing if you'd like. Okay. The property appraiser's job is not to sit. Or do you
Sorry, I had a question
Yeah,
about
sure.
the budget of the property appraiser. Can you tell us how, if at all, it's changed in your years in office?
It's been increased, the budget presented from the Dade County and from our office. But I can tell you one beautiful thing. I saved $2 million each year from my budget.
How?
How? We work very diligent. We transfer people from one place to the other one. If we have people to retire, I leave those empty areas so we can work. And that's what we've been saving, $2 million every single year.
So has your
And
budget gone
it's
up or
It's
gone
a
down?
public record. You can check it.
Yeah, but has it gone up or gone down?
I saved $2 million. It's going up, but I save $2 million every year.
And it's gone up for what use?
Because we, for example, in 2009, we have to increase the personnel to cover the amount of people that we have applying for or appealing,
Oh,
that we have to do that. But to give you an idea, if you take a look at the records in Broward did not finish yet, and they have less appeals than us.
okay.
So I present to them enough people so we can give that service to the people of Miami-Dade County.
Okay.
Are you both familiar with Scotty's land?
Yes, it's in my district.
Who owes the back taxes, Scotty's or the city?
I don't know what the contract says.
We have to read the lease. I don't have any idea on the lease. That somebody owes the money.
The Dade County tax collector says that Scotty's owes it, but I haven't done enough homework on it to be able to opine.
You have to check on the lease to see if the lease says that Scotty have to pay it, or the city of Miami. Look at what happened in the parking facility. So I don't trust those contracts anymore. We have to review it.
All right, well,
before
1
we make a
minute.
decision.
Thank you. 1 minute, gentlemen, just for a closing, and appreciate it, please.
Thank you. Thanks again for the opportunity. Like I said, the property appraiser his job is not to sit there and appraise every individual property. The property appraiser's job is to be the leader and the executive of the office. I believe that I'm better prepared to do this job. I think I have brought to light what the problems are, and in my questionnaire have given solutions onto how to deal with them. If I had more time, I could, say it all again here. The issue of the budget is a concern. I wouldn't propose a budget that I knew I wasn't going to spend. I would propose a budget that I was going to spend, the right budget the first time. There are a lot of things wrong. Again, the appeals, homestead fraud, the values coming out of them, the way that you share information with the public, the way that you treat the public. These are all things that really need to be addressed. I know what I'm doing when it comes to this issue. This was not the logical political step for me to do. If I was going to do a logical political step in choosing where to serve the public, it would not be to run for property appraiser. It would have been to do something else, mayor, commission, state senate. I chose to run for this because after doing the research and after recognizing the problem and after having a record of showing that I cared about these issues, I know that there's a problem and I know that I can do the job better. My record shows that I've been extremely effective in what I've done, and I want to take that same effectiveness to this office and render a better service not only to the state, the city, and the county who rely on these numbers, but also to the public. And that's why I'm running.
Thank you.
Okay, we hear Mr. Cantera speak about why he made that decision. Mr. Cantera, your time expired in Tallahassee. You didn't want to fight against Mr. Suarez on District 7 because Mr. Norman Brayman, to help you economically, told you not to do it. Not told you not to go for the mayor, and then
Is this
you
the
will-
closing you want to do?
Yes, why
Okay.
not?
Okay,
I want to tell it like it is.
okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, you have another.
I'm a stray guy.
30 minutes, 30 seconds, go for it.
So that's the reason he's running for this position. I'm more qualified than him because I'm an expert. I'm a state certified general real estate appraiser for 37 years. I've been doing values. That's what I've done all my life. I spent 3.5 years already as a Miami-Dade County Property Appraiser, doing my job and doing my job properly. I've been fair in value to all the peoples in Miami-Dade County, and you can see it because we reduced $66 billion in taxable value in Miami-Dade County. I'm not a happy camper with the commissioners. I'm not a happy camper with the mayor because they don't like me because I make a big reduction. I'm going to keep doing the same thing. I'm going to keep trying at the front to be as friendly as possible. We have a lot of problem with the Homestead fraud. We are working on. Don't fix anything that is working right now. It's working, and the property appraisal office is working. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.